The member for Melton.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. And today I rise to contribute to the Water Legislation Amendment Bill 2023. And Acting Speaker, this bill clarifies some parts of the Water and Catchment Legislation Amendment Act 2021 and will allow for the implementation of a new means of regulating our water system, the place of take approvals framework. It protects our consumers and our waterways, and it ensures water supply in Victorian declared water systems for many years to come, and that's exactly what we want to do, and that's shore up the system. The bill allows us to engage with flood-affected farmers, allowing them more say in how they manage their own water delivery, and will make water delivery rights clear in the event of a delivery shortfall. Just picking up on a point that the member for Mildura raised, and that was about trying to, I suppose, transfer or transmit water to other locations. I vaguely remember when the north-south pipeline was a thing of moving water from one part of the state to another, that the farmers objected to that quite vigorously. So while I accept the principle of shifting water around, it's okay if it suits the farmers, but when it doesn't suit the farmers, they do object strongly. So, Acting Speaker, as Victoria's population is growing rapidly in the mighty Melton electorate, I'm very lucky to meet many individuals and families who have moved from interstate and overseas and have decided to make the district their new home, which is great, and that will continue to happen as it's projected into 2050 of 450,000 people going to be in the electorate of Melton. So water is a big issue for us in that electorate. The bill also makes amendments to the Water Act 1989, which was a glorious year because the mighty Hawthorn Hawks won the premiership that year, so that was fantastic. So a good year to amend the Water Act. Acting Speaker, the water supply for my electorate is Greater Western Water, and they cover almost 1.3 million residential and business customers in a region that is booming, as I said, with population growth to grow to 250,000 by 2030, 450,000 by 2050. I have a very good working relationship with Greater Western Water, and I've found them very responsive to their customers, which is terrific. It was only a few years ago that I had to help out the Exford Primary School. In my first few months of being elected in 2018, I found out that the Exford Primary School did not have mains connected water and did not have sewage connected to a school that was in the metropolitan region. I was quite shocked at this. So, of course, we managed to get some funding of $2.4 million to make sure that the Exford Primary School was connected to mains water and to sewage. And let me tell you, it was life-changing for that school and that school community. I remember visiting the school and the smell of the septic tank and the kids having to drink bottled water because they couldn't drink out of the tank water was amazing. And again, I've got to say, it was life-changing for that school community, and it's fantastic to go back there every time, and they still sort of recognise that outcome. So I did approach Greater Western Water, obviously, and raised my concerns about that, and again, they were forthcoming. Obviously, it was about who was going to fund it, and I'm pleased to say that the state put up the money to fund that change. So not only did they get the water and the sewage, but also it came with replacing relocatable buildings with more permanent classrooms. So there was a big upgrade to that school, not only off the back of the water connection. So, of course, ongoing effects of the 2022 floods are still being felt across our state. And major rivers flooded their banks, inundating thousands of homes and businesses. And we've all seen that in the news reports and things like that. And, of course, as an ongoing outcome of that, some locations around the state had to have temporary villages made, such as what happened in Rochester and set up in Elmore, the temporary village at Elmore. And so we've all been through some of these tragic circumstances over the last few years, all these flooding events. We'll know someone, or we'll have family members, or we'll have some people within our electorates that were affected. I just want to take a bit of time just to acknowledge the work and the tenure of the Emergency Management Commissioner, Andrew Crisp, who's recently announced his retirement at the conclusion of his 5-year term. And since his appointment in 2018, he's provided exceptional leadership and a calm, familiar face for Victorians during some of the most significant emergencies the state has faced, which included things like the 2019-20 fires, the COVID-19 pandemic response, the June 21 storm event, and of course the October 22 flood event. And of course, prior to his taking up the Commissioner role at EMV, he served his distinguished career, a 40-year career with the Victoria Police, and his leadership has been instrumental in leading the establishment of a permanent 24/7 workforce for the State Control Centre and the establishment of Emergency Recovery Victoria, and ongoing work to reform the operating model and legislative framework for managing emergencies, and his face was on our TVs daily through these disasters that we've had, and as I say, more recent times with the floods that have occurred back in the last quarter of last year. And I know I speak for my electorate and the electorate of Melton when I say thank you to the Commissioner for his service, and I wish him well in his retirement. But I take this opportunity to remind the House that I tried to retire once, and I just hope that the Commissioner, Crisp, has a longer retirement than what I did. I think hopefully he'll enjoy longer than 3 months in retirement. Anyway, but as well as floods, like what happened last year, Victoria has experienced several significant droughts in recent times, leading to a greater focus on water conservation and management. And as we know, drought can have significant and wide-ranging effects on our water supply, and reducing the amount of water availability and also affecting the quality of the water supply. Obviously this causes issues with consumers, but we also have to think about the impacts environmentally and on the water system itself. And I hope that most of us here understand that water is essential to our life, and protecting the health of the water supply is essential to making sure that our future generations will have safe and reliable water access. Clearly, there's still a long way to go with some industry in regard to protecting our waterways, of just not spilling stuff into our waterways and polluting them. And again, I would ask that the regulator regulate firmly when that does occur to protect those waterways, and how important this commodity is for all of us. Of course, a shortfall happens when there obviously isn't enough water in the system to meet demand and at the time and place that a water user wants it. So this might happen because of increased demand, or because the distance between the dams and the water users means that the water can't get to the user in time. And the risk of this happening is obviously uncommon, but it is increasing, in particular in the Lower Murray area. And all of these floods and droughts, they're increasing because of climate change, and we can't ignore that fact. And of course, climate change is real. It's an undeniable threat to our planet. And Victoria was actually one of the first jurisdictions in the world to legislate a net zero greenhouse gas emissions with the Climate Change Act 2017. Just over the weekend, Acting Speaker, I was down at Pikes Creek Reservoir at Murniong, and just across the way in the district of Eureka, and the Women in Rescue SES initiative was on, which saw females at VICSES volunteers from across the Western region for a targeted training event designed by Women for Women, aimed to help celebrate women in emergency operations. And I was down there for a few hours watching their exercise and their scenario training in regard to rescuing someone that went into the water in the lake, and also someone that was lost in the vicinity of that reservoir there. And their expertise and professionalism was fantastic, and I just want to extend my gratitude to the work that they do. And it's fantastic to see that now female VICSES volunteers is currently around 35% of all volunteers, and I think that's a fantastic percentage, but of course we need more, and we encourage more to join. But I just want to extend my congratulations and thanks to Jane Patton for organising that event and how important that event is. But again, it was all premised around a massive waterway and someone being lost in the water, and it was great to see those women in action. This is a really important bill, even though it's been alluded to that there's only some minor changes, but they're very important changes. As I say, water is so important in our lives in every which way for us. So I commend the bill to the House.